another support. I like this one probably best of all. You can get you some number 9 gauge wire. That's what this is. It's pretty rigid. And you can take this and I'll get right here in front of you and show you guys. Let's say your trail is here. You point that towards your trail and push this in the ground. You can take your driving device, hammer, hatchet, whatever. And I meant that. And you just drive that down until it gets solid. It's been beat on one time too many. Hit the rock down there. And then you kind of just see how that's nice and solid. You can put your snare over here and support it here. And let's say you just got there and you're not going to use it for coyote. That's why this is tall. You want to use it for bobcat. You just shorten it. It don't make no difference. You ain't gonna hurt it. You just shorten it up, bend it into an S or whatever, and it's still nice and rigid. That's probably used as much as anything, especially where they ain't got trees like us, out in the prairies and big farms and stuff. You don't want to spend your time hunting stuff. You want to be doing your deal. So that's some ideas. There's another one you could build at home. Cut you some little wedges, drill a hole, put your wire in there, go around it twice, whatever, and you can use that to drive it. You don't have those notches or something else. Drive that down. As soon as it hits the moisture, it's going to swell and it's going to even get harder, and it'll really stay in place. But if you're going to use them for everything, make these about 24, 25 inches long at least, so you can bend them over and use them for coyotes, because coyotes, top of the snare, can own maximum in Arkansas. Well, I say 22 inches. The snare loop can only be 12 inches wide because some of them do sag and they're in an egg shape. So they just say 12 inches side to side. So it might be taller than that. But the bottom cannot be more than 10 inches off the ground. We're trying to eliminate catching deer. If you set out 2 dozen snares and you leave them, run them every day for a week, you're probably going to catch a deer. The more snares you got out, the more your odds, of course. It's kind of like anything else. So try to stay in the rules. That snare can't touch a fence when fully extended. So if the trail's here, along the edge of the fence, and you see some good cow track, you're gonna set it. There's no cattle in the land. You don't want to try to snare on cows. You're gonna get in trouble. Real quick, find you some vines, weeds, bushes, briars that are crowding them out away from the fence, and set right out from it. Stand that tail, make sure it won't get behind it to the fence. That's legal. Can't touch the fence. The idea was to not have somebody's dog hanging over the top wire of the fence and a load of kids go by in a school bus or something. Okay.
So the more the natural it looks to the area, the better? I mean,
Absolutely.
are they gonna?
It's not as bad as you would think. Let's stop and think about how many people we have anymore and how much junk is in the ditches, and the farmers are going out and they're leaking oil and spitting tobacco juice and flipping cigarette butts, and they're used to somewhat smelling things, and you know. But when you get in more into their territory, let's say, you want it more natural as you can get it. I think I don't want any of those smells on my snare. I don't want to stop and examine it. I don't want any food smells, urine, lure, or whatever. I don't want anything in on my snare. I don't want to go through it. It's just there. Just go through it. Okay?
So you don't use lures at all of any kind?
Oh yeah. I carry lures, urine, and nests, or some kind of container, and that way it don't get on my tools. It don't get on my hands. And let's say I got a set ready, and I'm going to put. I've got my flag over here. I've got a set here and a set on the other side. Then I take my gloves off. I get my lure and stuff, and I'll use a forked stick or a stick that's long enough to weave through these limbs. I'll dip it in there and put it up, and then I'm done. And then I put my lure stuff back and closed up because I don't want to get it on my hands and stuff. That's the way I do it. Anyway. Okay. Did we talk about the flags yet? If you use any bird, fish, or animal matter, it cannot be within 20 foot of a trap or a snare. It was designed to protect the raptors, the eagles, the hawks, and all that mess. Very few people have caught them because of that. But anyway, if you put anything at the trap set, Mike's going to talk about this too. You don't want anything that's visible. Just, so you got to cover it with rocks, leaves, bark, sticks, whatever. Can't be visible. So in snaring, you're better off to have it over there. Okay, 20 feet away. So if I've got a flag over there, we call them flags or tractions. You can put a snare here, and I'll go down that way at least 20 feet away, set another one. So if he's coming or going, or if he comes across that field, sees that, and you've got lure up on that bush, he comes over here, okay, there's nothing exciting there, I'm gonna go down here to the river. He goes through this snare. Same thing on the opposite side. If he comes from this way and misses that snare, goes in and takes the smell and goes that way. He's gonna run that edge going or coming, usually. You just kind of got to think like they do. There's nothing out here to eat in the middle of this field unless he sees a gopher pop its head up or sees a gopher mound or something out there. He might go out and dig it. Normally, in a pasture or something, they're going to run edges. Unless they're traveling. You've seen them cross the road in front of them and they go under a fence and run across looking back. That's because they're traveling somewhere. I'll make a snare set right quick for you. Okay, I'm going to ignore this. And I'll take a snare. While ago, I had to take everything apart backwards so they could see how it's put up. I left everything set. Okay. Let me show this right quick. I don't think I showed you this already, did I? I come up with this years ago as a ready-made set for snares. And I took, you can get about 15, 20 of these in a 5-gallon bucket. And I just drill a hole, run your cable through, put your name tag on there if you wish. Put your wire support is right in here. Everything's right there. You wrap it around here, and I would make these up in the shop. Take a staple gun, staple that up, make a nice little bundle out of it. I went one afternoon and put about 2 buckets of them in the front of the boat, 6-pound sledgehammer and hip boots. I just run up on the bank where a beaver had been hauling out or something. And by the time it hit the bank, I'd have my feet in the water. I'd jerk one of these out, pull it loose, take the hammer and drive it all the way down to the sand or mud. Pull this up, support your snare, stick up a couple of sticks and go your way. I set 22 of these in 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
It's the best I've ever done. It was a fun day, and next morning I had 7 or 8 beaver. You don't do that every day.
What? Beaver.
Yeah. You just roll that all up. In Iowa, I made up about 50 of these. We took them to Iowa and got fortunate enough to go up there and trap coons for a while. And I made 2 of those. I had one at the top for the support and one down here for the snare, thinking this would give me a little edge and I wouldn't have to drive them so deep. But we had one under a bridge. I didn't grind these corners off, and it disemboweled itself, and it really upset me. But I don't want to make anything suffer. I'd rather just ease up there and shoot them ahead with 22, just be blunt about it. Take them out in a hurry, they don't suffer. I had another one that got up on here and pulled all the hair off his belly back in here, not his legs, because it was too sharp. So from now on, they're all made this way, and I drive them all the way down flush. There's nothing sticking up to get tangled around, and they'll just roll around the grass, whatever. If you're trying to hold them, you want to have something they can't get wrapped around. That's something I didn't talk about earlier. If you're close to a tree or something, and you're trying to kill everything, that's fine. They'll wrap around and choke a lot quicker. If you want to get into the live market, catching fox or coyotes, especially coyotes, there's so dang many of them. These running pins will pay about $75 usually for a snare caught coyote because it doesn't damage their feet. You may have one that's got water head, we call it. His head will snort and it looks like a husky. You can barely see his eyes, be all fuzzed up. You think something wrong with him. Don't kill him, just subdue him, with a catch pole. Cut the snare off, whatever, get him home, put him in a cage, and the next day or so, that swelling will go down. That's just blood retention is what it is. It causes their head to swell. It doesn't hurt them. Get over it real quick. Okay, so that's
Should
that.
you use that only for beaver, or can you
No,
use that for
you can
anything?
use for coon or whatever. You'd make them longer. If they're gonna do coyotes in, like on a sandbar, that won't hold a coyote. You need to make them this long.
Okay.
But guys, if you make these up, keep them in the dry. I'm not saying airtight container, I mean just out of the direct rain. When you drive that sucker in the ground, it immediately starts to swell up. That moisture, especially this rough sawed lumber, it's got little ridges and stuff, and all the little thuds and stuff start swelling up immediately. You can't pull them out of the ground hardly. That's why I carry cable cutters. I can cut that all to save it. Just leave that sucker behind. They're too easy to make, too cheap. You can go to the lumber yard and get survey stakes, all different lengths. I don't like pine, but if you got a bigger size head on your hammer or something, they'll drive that split, and they'll hold. They'll hold just fine. Okay. All right, we're gonna go right over here. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do this. Very simply. Did I show y'all the stake already?
No.
Okay, let me show you the stake right quick. This is called, typically, commonly called, a wolf fang. Why? That's what they call it. It's made of 1/8" steel, got a little special groove driver, and it goes in the hiney parts right here. And you drive this in the ground. If I was going to sit here seriously for coyote, could you scoot over this a little bit? Yeah, then. I would set right along here, and I would drive this probably at least 16 inches. It's pretty hard ground right here. We're going to say that's 16 inches deep. I'm going to wiggle this, twist it, and pull it up. Then when you pull this, that little jewel turns crossways in the ground, and it'll pull up a whole chunk of dirt. When you try to pull it up, you'll have to take a pick and bust it out of the ground, or they may talk about auger. You can take an auger and run down, bore down beside it with a cordless drill. But those little ears at the back, because it's turned this way, those little ears make it turn when you start pulling on it. Boy, that sucker, you can't pull it out with your back. You can, a deer or a coyote's gonna run off with it. So you wanna make sure. So I make mine about that long. And if I'm on the river, if I happen to be in a sandbar situation, we did an otter study one year with, had to anchor them solid, and we used a 32-inch driver, I believe, or 3 foot, and we was using a little different flat anchor. We'd push them down on the sandbar, pull the rod out, and you'd start pulling on that trap. That thing would come right up. I mean, not real easy, but it'd come back up. We figured out if you push that down and leave it, dig your hole, whatever you're gonna do, trail set, get it all ready. Then when you try to put, it wouldn't come out because that sand resettles back down on that as you're walking around there and whatnot. All the water gets out of there, and that sand is right back. You ain't pulling that up. So when we go to pull them back up, when we like a week at a time in a place, we go back, get a hold of the trap, and they had shock springs, and you just lean into them and wait for a minute or so, and you'd feel it start budging, and then it'd float right back out the same way you put it in. So these will definitely hold in sandbars, but if I was trying to hold a beaver or otter, I'd probably go 24 inches deep. Okay, so you'd want longer ones, or just kind of mark your cable or your chain and just keep driving. Just put her down about that deep. Okay, this is buried in the ground. We got it all set. I like quick links, even the 1/8. There's a little one laying there. These are 3/16. They're pretty cheap. Buy them in bulk. These guys have them. They're so handy because maybe you left your puller to pull this out of the ground, which they got different shapes. Some with T's, it's got hooks, you pull them out. Some have a flat piece of metal with a rocker looking thing. You hook it in there and lever it out. But maybe you didn't bring it. Maybe you drove it through a rock or a root. You can't get it up. So instead of spending all that time fooling with it, or maybe you just want to reset the set, you just unscrew that little jewel and unhook your snare, your trap, put another one on here, and go back to business. Okay? So that's why I like the quick links. You can double loop these together, but if you catch a deer or coyote, he's gonna hit the end. Now it's gonna be the tightest knot you ever seen in your life. Try to get that tooth apart. So you screw that down just finger tight. They don't unthread nothing. So this is buried here. Get my snare support. Let's use a stick. Take our anchor, our little driver here. And I'm gonna set this right here close to the center of the trail. See right where she's standing is about the center of the trail. That stick took a pretty bad beating today. Flatten that out a little bit. All right, we're gonna catch us a coyote here. Okay, I'm 8 inches, thumb to middle finger. So I want to say, for me, 11-inch average. Maybe a little smaller, maybe a little bigger. I don't like getting much bigger now. From side to side, here we're looking about 10 and a half. So we can go just a little bigger. I want him to look through it and ignore that it's even there. Okay, so we're all anchored in the ground. We'll come right down here. I'm gonna move this handy little jewel. So we're gonna set this right about here. So what I'm gonna do is wrap this around, hopefully not everything in the woods. We're gonna wrap that around right there. And then just bend this ear back over to hold it steady. Okay, I want it 90 degrees from the trail, in the center of the trail. And then I'm gonna jack it up to get hold of it with the pliers or hand or whatever. And that's 8 inches. I'm gonna get it a little higher, and I want it 90 degrees here. It's trying to fall on me, so I'm gonna jack it back to 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock. I'm gonna get it just like so. That's why you use a wire or the supports I showed you, and you kind of get it like that. You get it about much higher. I'm talking about a big dog. If you never weighed them, they're not as big as you think. The biggest coyote I ever caught was 45 pounds. Now there's some out there and guys, I seen one in the cow pasture that weigh 100 pounds. Bullshit. I'll just be honest. There ain't no such thing. Excuse my language. I've weighed lots of critters. Biggest coon I've ever weighed, I caught in Wisconsin on the last day I stayed with my son. Weighed 32 and a half pounds. It looked like a cub bear. On that railroad bridge. Had to shoot it 4 times to kill it. Got a big old head. Anyway, I caught one since up there that weighed 28, and it was a big old thing. But here, a big coyote's gonna be 45. You're gonna average way less than that. And there's gonna be a few weigh 50 maybe, or a little better. But that's my experience. Biggest otter we ever caught, otter study and all, was 28. Biggest beaver, I caught a 63 pounder, had 3 legs. I unfortunately was a guy that took the other leg off the year before. That's another long story. I've seen some bigger than that. That's some 70, 80 pounders right there.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That's a huge beaver.
Yeah, that ain't something you want to walk up and try to pet.
No.
You lose a leg. Guys, it's that simple. Now, this is open field, cow pasture, whatever. Take you a few weeds. Don't worry about that shiny thing, but I would probably close it off a little bit, and I would put this around here like that, push it in good. I might even, he's not going to go around this, but I want to kind of camouflage just a little bit. Push that down. Now you see it's in the loop, so get over here and break some of this stuff back out of the way. Cows walk through here and break off stuff all the time, so I got a little tooth for that. Something like that. Maybe put another one over here. I don't want to make it look like a picket fence, but done. That simple. Don't want any smells here. You want him looking through that. So that's why I put my lure on a limb, put my urine on down low, if I was going to put urine, I'd pick this little clump of grass right here, or here's an ideal, right here. If you've seen dogs hike their legs, that right there, squirt my urine on that. I don't like rocks because the sun comes out, you get one of them bluebird days, it'll dry that urine up and leave practically no smell. I don't like rocks. I like a root, a stick, something like that. If you had another one that you could lay under this and get it up off the ground, it's even better. You know, cows, canines, dogs, foxes, same thing. They like to hike that leg. If that's sticking up there, they can't help themselves. Get it up like that, pour your urine on that. Don't be stingy, use an ounce. Really put the urine on it. Lures, the same thing. They used to say, they used to sell eyedroppers. Put 6 drops to 2.5 inches to the back of the trap. Use a half a teaspoon. I know it's expensive when you use a lot, but you're going to catch more critters. It's just that simple. But that's as simple as I can get. That's snaring right there, 101.
That works.